Hello, I'm Yinka Bikini and welcome to Out of Frame. This is the podcast that highlights the importance of below-the-line roles. That's everyone who helps bring your favourite film and TV series to life, from armourers to makeup artists, animal wranglers to costume designers. I'll be speaking to people from all walks of life to give you an insight into the film and TV industry like you've never seen before. This is Out of Frame. When you imagine your favourite movie, the first thing you might picture is the location. The background of a film can tell you everything you need to know about the plot and where we are. It's not called set the scene for nothing. Someone who knows how all this comes together is production designer Sophie Becher. Sophie's recent work includes the Disney Plus series The Acolyte, Universal's psychological horror You Should Have Left, and the TV series Halo, based on the worldwide popular video game. Sophie, welcome to Out of Frame.
Thank you.
Sophie, I'm keen to find out all about what your role involves on a film and TV set. But first, I want to learn a bit more about you. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, which are going to give the audience a little glimpse into the world of Sophie Becher. Are you ready?
Yes.
Uh-oh. What's the last film you watched that really inspired you?
I'm Still Here, the Walter Sallis film, because I thought it was so brilliant in evoking a period and a sense of a family. I don't know if you know about the film. I love Walter Sallis's work, but just the way he made you understand the father and the family and the dynamic was so brilliantly done through sort of cutaways to 16mm footage and stuff like that. You understood the father. I don't want to give things away, but you understood the dynamic of the family, and when something dramatic happens, you're with the whole family in trying to resolve it.
What was your first job in the TV industry?
My first job was on a film called The Good Father, which had Anthony Hopkins in it, and it was Mike Newell's first feature film. He'd come from television, and I was the art department runner.
And what did that entail?
That entailed, so we were based in Clapham, and at this stage I couldn't drive, and it is actually essential pretty much for a designer to be able to drive. And I used to go around on a bicycle, and I literally, in those days, the art department just consisted of about 4 or 5 people. So I did everything from sticking blossom onto a tree to picking up drawings to going around and photographing interiors of houses so that we could copy them.
I can imagine you riding through Clapham Common with your little helmet on and
helmet.
Cherry blossom sticking out the back.
No helmet, just drawings shoved in a basket in the front, trying to hold on to technical drawings which I was getting printed.
But eventually you learned to drive.
Yes.
It's all history. Okay, Sophie, I think it's time we find out exactly what it's like to work in production design. So can you tell me exactly what your role as a production designer involves?
My role as a production designer is to realise the world of the script. So I'm usually one of the first people who comes on board after the director. And what my role is to work out how we're going to shoot the film, and the producer, obviously, work out how we're going to shoot the film. Are we going to build sets? Are we going to shoot on location? And then I'm very instrumental in choosing all the locations. And then I also design the sets themselves. So anything you see on a film has been really carefully considered before we start filming, and it's like a big conversation. It's up to me to realise that whole visual side of the film.
That's such a big job.
Yeah, it is. I always think if I'd thought about the magnitude often on a job of how much we had to achieve, I'd never start it. So you kind of just have to go in little steps.
What's the first step?
The first step is to read the script, break it down, think about what you have to say about the script and what you understand. So have your own ideas as well as taking on board other people's ideas. And then come up, nowadays, it's so much easier with computers and stuff, come up with mood boards and references and sketches to show the director. And then we take it from there.
Can you give me an example of a film or TV show you've worked on, sort of where you began?
Right, so I've just done a film with Warner Brothers called Panic Carefully. And it's a film with Sam Ishmael, who is a brilliant director. He's fantastic. His stuff is very high concept. And so the premise is we are the creators of our own demise. And I don't know if you've seen Mr. Robot, but it's on the veins of cyber terrorism.
Okay.
So my first thing was to read the scripts and then talk to Sam. And the thing was, this film is all set in America predominantly, and we were shooting in England.
Oh.
So one of the first things I had to do is think, how the hell can I achieve certain sets? For instance, I don't think that this is giving the game away. We had to do the New York Stock Exchange. How would I achieve the New York Stock Exchange in England? In the end, there isn't anywhere that could emulate the New York Stock Exchange, so we had to build it.
Oh, wow.
In Leavesden.
Just around the corner. There are loads of different aspects of a production that fall under production designer. It's not just the set alone. So can you take me through some of the departments that you're responsible for?
I'm responsible for the set decoration department. I work very closely with the set decorator. I usually brief the set decorator. So I'm responsible for them. I work very closely with them and their team and the prop boys dressing sets. I have to have a very close liaison with the location department because I generally start briefing them about what we're looking for. Sometimes the location manager is brought on before me, so they've got a library of images, so I'll go through it with them and we'll work out what's a good place to go and stuff like that. Construction, obviously, I have to oversee all the construction. So if you're building a lot of sets, that's quite a lot of work going around all the different sets, making sure they look exactly like you want them to do.
Yeah. I guess managing relationships is something that's really important in your role as well.
It's incredibly important. And it's very important not to have an ego, I think, and really listen to what your crew are saying, because everybody has great ideas. And I think it's very important to allow people to have their voice and to collaborate.
And you must work really closely with the art department, costume, makeup, so on, so that everything comes together and sort of marries with the vision.
So I usually do a sort of Bible of colours, and we come up with a colour palette and we all try and stick to that. And it's incredibly important to spend lots of time with costume. Like, for instance, if I'm sitting on a sofa and I'm wearing exactly the same colour as this blue, I'm literally just going to merge into the sofa.
Floating head.
So it's really important to have those conversations.
How did you know that this was something that you wanted to do?
I always loved film. I wanted to act. And I was at Edinburgh University. I was doing a fine arts degree and I was in the theatre group there and I was acting in it. But because I was half art college, half uni, and everybody always used to say, well, you're the arty one, you can do the theatre sets. So I started doing theatre sets and I realised I way preferred that to the whole acting process and probably wasn't a very good actress. So, yeah.
What do you love about your job?
I love the fact that you can have an idea and you can realise it. So you can go really mad. You could have a totally mad idea, and that's why sci-fi is so great. You can say, right, I'm going to build this enormous space and it's going to have like a stepped roof, or it's going to be see-through. Like on Halo, I had this idea that I wanted to do a sort of diaphanous set, that the walls would be backlit and sort of see-through. And that was really exciting to experiment and see how you could achieve something like that.
I guess you have to be super adaptable as well, because sometimes, like you mentioned, you could be working with sci-fi and these huge budgets and, otherworldly things, but then you may be working on a film that has a really minimal cast and it's in one or a couple of locations. Do you find that you have to sort of adapt all the time?
You absolutely have to be totally adaptable. But I think each job I do, I always find something exciting to do with it, even if it's just doing someone's living room. It's like, well, what is this person like? What colour wallpaper would they have? I'm equally excited about that as some of the bigger sets, actually, sometimes.
Sophie, each week I ask everyone who comes to visit Out of Frame to bring something into the CrewHQ studio with them, an object that helps give a visual representation of what their role entails. So can you tell me what you have brought in today?
I have brought a colour swatch. I mean, it's really hard for a designer to bring because there's so many areas, but this is incredibly important because it's like film is all to do, if you're doing a film in colour, even in black and white, you still got to choose the colours that the sets are going to be. And so colour is always one of the first ports of call with directors, with cinematographers. It's like, what colour are we going to paint the walls? Or what colour is the whole overall palette going to be? And this is a Pantone colour chart. So what that means is it's not any specific sort of like, it's not Dulux or, I've got a Farrow and Ball colour chart here. This is a universal like colour chart. So I can talk to somebody in America or China or something. They'd have these colours. So this is my sort of go-to whenever I'm working, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to paint the walls this colour as the costume designer, and then they can look at it on their colour chart. So it's a kind of shortcut language.
For audio listeners, can you describe exactly what we're looking at?
Yes, it's like a fan deck of colours, and each page has about 8 different colours on it that within a range. So like I'm looking at the yellow, and there's several different tones of yellow, and then it has a serial number. And Pantone was kind of invented as a printing press colour. So it's really good because if you're doing graphics, it's a universal language. And then it's got so many colours that you can generally find something that works for you.
Can I have a look at it?
Yeah.
Are these from a specific production, or are these just yours?
That's mine. I take it onto every production. But I've used it on several shows, and I also do commercials. And often with a commercial, you've got to have a really quick shorthand. For instance, I did one. We were shooting in Doha, Tokyo, and South Africa, and so I had to find a sort of language that all of them I knew all of them would have the same swatch. So for instance, the Farrow and Ball, you just literally, it's a limited palette, so it's much easier to choose colours because that can get a bit mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. But this is a very British range, and it tends to, I would use this for period films because it gives a period look.
It's so funny because sitting here holding this, I feel I'm getting sort of flashbacks of being at the nail salon, trying to pick my shade.
Yeah, which is really hard.
It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Do any memories come to mind when you look at, let's say, the Farrow and Ball one from any productions that you've worked on?
I did a TV miniseries called And Then There Were None, and it was pure Farrow and Ball colours. That everything was based on that. So it's very easy to come up with a sort of language, because often I'll use colour as an emotional sort of background for whatever's happening in the foreground. So if you want it to be fiery, you're going to use a fiery colour. If you want it to be cool, you're going to use a cool colour. And often, like with costume designers, we'll decide to contrast our colours. So there's a rule of complementary colours. There's 3 primary colours, and when you mix 2 of them, that's the colour that complements the one that's left over.
So yellow and red, orange?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then blue is the complementary colour.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know, one of the things that I love about this podcast, right, is that, yes, I get to speak to really interesting people, but all of you sort of are building the blocks of exactly what it is to watch and enjoy film. So as a viewer, and I'm a bit of a film fanatic, a bit of a film buff, I may watch a show or a movie and it has certain emotions and certain sort of reactions from me that can come down to many different layers of these little intricacies. Because, when you speak about the emotions and sort of setting the scene, it's so important. And if it didn't exist, you would really notice it.
Yeah, yeah.
But if it's done super well, it's almost just part of the land. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah. And it's really important to filmmakers, that whole progression of tone or colour is a really important part of it.
Sophie, you've worked on everything from horror movies to sci-fi series, comedies and war films. I mean, your repertoire is impressive. Now, I want to hear a little bit more about what those experiences were like.
God, every film has a totally different sort of experience. So, for instance, on A Private War, which is the war film you mentioned about Marie Colvin, we were in Jordan and we had to create 7 different war zones. So that's a real challenge in a country that's quite tricky to work in, especially as a woman. But it was the most exciting experience. And the director was a documentary filmmaker. So he said to me, if I walk into the sets and they don't feel real, I will refuse to shoot. So the challenge was to really recreate Homs and Libya. And I mean, tough subject matter, but really important. I felt it was a really important film to show what war journalists actually go through emotionally themselves, because we always take for granted, we hear all these war journalists just on the battlefield, but you don't realise what a toll it takes on them.
Of course.
So that I think that's one of the films I'm the most proud of, because it was such a challenge. We were literally in Jordan, tiny skeleton crew just trying to create Homs out of a building site. It wasn't even a war-torn town. We had to create that.
If we take it back to sort of the beginning of a production for you, so a director gives you a brief for where and when the film you're working on is set, using, it could be the film that you just mentioned, but using a production you've worked on, can you take me through the questions that you ask yourself and sort of what resources you use?
I think the first question you need to ask is, what's the essence? What's the core of this? What's the subtext? What's the story? What are we trying to say? What are the most important sets? What am I really going to concentrate and put all the money into as well? Because often one gets carried away and you create an amazing set, but it's like for 2 seconds. So that's kind of the way I start. And then I build up. I personally imagine that I'm the different characters. So, I mean, one of my first design jobs on my own was The Borrowers for the BBC. And I literally imagined I was a little person, tiny. And I thought, what would I use as a saucepan? How would I, with this world, get around? How would I sit? What would be a chair? And it was sort of my idea. Okay, cotton reels, a saucepan made out of a screw top lid, and you just imagine you're that person and put yourself in that situation.
That's one of my favourite things as well, The Borrowers. It reminds me of being a child. What's been some of the wildest requests that you've had?
I think one of the wildest actually was that I did a commercial, because commercials can be quite exciting and challenging. And it was a director called Chris Cunningham, who's a genius. And it was for Gucci. And he said, I want, it's quite a famous commercial because it's a woman in a field of flowers. He wanted a magic hour. And he wanted this woman to be able to control the flowers just with her hands. Out of her hands would come wind. And he left me to work it out, how we'd do that. And he said, I don't believe you can do it, but this is what I want. And nothing can be done in post.
Fun.
So it was an enormous challenge. I had to experiment with how would flowers blow over and pop back up, and I realised it would have to be fake flowers. Then I experimented with how would they bend and pop up, and I worked out with a special effects company that it would be piano wire. So we ended up having to call China, because the flowers had to be a certain colour and certain Gucci tint. We ended up on lots of conversations with factories in China. We had to get them to manufacture, I think it was 300,000 pink flowers, and they could only produce poppies, and the production wanted roses. So I had to have somebody pick off all the leaves, these extra petals, pick off all the leaves, put the flower head on a piece of wire, paint the piece of wire green, and then we had to get it into a field that we had to find where you had the longest daylight hours. So I spent a week with Chris Cunningham driving around Latvia, looking for a field where you had a horizon where there would be the right longest magic hour. And then what we did was we had 4 cranes on each side of the field, and 4 people on each sort of cherry picker crane would come out, and they had to spike the flowers in, and then we had to crane the actress in.
Lucky for you, I bought that perfume, so there you go. What have you learned about managing a director's expectations on what you can create? Do you just try until you figure it out?
So it's about understanding what the director wants and understanding what the producer needs and trying to manage all the expectations, including your own. I mean, I have very high expectations of myself and my team and the production, really. I always want something to be the best.
But how satisfying is it when it comes together? Like, do you breathe a sigh of relief, or is it on to the next scene?
I'm terrible because I always think, I could have done that better.
I think everyone thinks that. Even conversations, you think I could have said this.
Oh my God, yes. I always look at films. I have to wait a long time before I'll look at a film that I've designed, because otherwise I'm literally like, oh my God, why is that curtain like that? And why didn't we do this? And yeah, or why didn't they shoot a little bit more to the left? So it's quite torturous.
For me, right, I come from a radio background.
Yeah.
So the majority of my career I've spent in broadcasting. And it kind of got to the point, maybe like 5 or 6 years in, when I could no longer listen to the radio without my work ears on. So even now in the taxi coming here, the radio's on. I'm like, oh, he missed that button, or oh no, he clanged the vocal, or that was a really good link, or something like that. Do you find yourself doing that when you're sort of at home watching telly on your time off?
I do, but I think if it's a really good film, you lose yourself in it. And so luckily I try and cut myself off. But then afterwards I go, oh, how did they do that?
Sophie, speaking to you today, I can see just how much you love working in the world of film and TV. But the question is, does your knowledge match your passion?
I'm always learning.
Yeah.
Always learning.
Yeah.
And the film industry is always developing, and technology like visual effects and stuff. So what's so exciting about what we do is we're always learning. And, you know, I can go from a film about the diamond industry, which was flawless, through to a comedy, you know, about somebody trying to run or something, you know, like Run, Fat Boy Run, to, you know, sci-fi based on a video game. So you've suddenly got to know all about the video game, which I didn't know anything about Halo when I started.
Well, you've chosen a specialist subject within the world of film and TV before coming here today, and now is the time to be quizzed. So you have to get ready to answer 3 questions on your specialist subject, which is the most specific that I've seen in this podcast so far.
Well, I'm terrible about answering multiple, you know, questions. And so I just thought, I've got to just do a film I've recently watched, because otherwise I won't be able to answer it.
Well, it is the 1995 classic Mike Figgis film, Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's a film about Ben, played by my personal fave, Nicolas Cage. And he is a struggling screenwriter who's just been fired. He moves to Las Vegas with the sole aim to drink himself to death. There, he meets and falls in love with Sarah, played by Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah.
So, why did you choose Leaving Las Vegas as your chosen topic? Is it because you watched it the other day?
It's because I am currently working on a project that's all set in Las Vegas. And so I have to watch. Yeah, I don't have to, but I end up watching films set in the place. And I love Mike Figgis' work, and it was a huge success at the time. And I had forgotten how good the film was.
Okay. Question number 1, Sophie. What small role did director Mike Figgis play in the film?
Oh, my God.
Is it A, a security guard, B, a mobster, or C, a member of the audience?
Oh, I know I saw him. Mobster.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes. See, look, you're already winning.
And that took a bit of guessing.
So Russian mobsters are after Yuri, and in one scene, Mike Figgis stares down Yuri at a petrol station. So he's appeared in a number of his films, actually, and these were a way of him adding like in-jokes and unexpected cameos and poking fun at Hollywood, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're off to a stellar start. Couldn't have gone better. How you feeling?
Very nervous.
No, fine and funky fresh, Sophie. What's going on? All right, question number 2. How did Ben first meets Sarah? A, he almost hits her with his car at a crosswalk. B, in a supermarket. Or C, in a casino?
A.
You knew what you were doing when you came in here. Correct. It was a very romantic interaction. All right, we're going for a clean sweep here. Question number 3. What is the name of the motel Ben checks into when he arrives in Las Vegas? Is it A, the Comfort Inn, B, the Whole Year Inn, or C, the Vegas Sleeper Inn?
The Whole Inn.
The answer is B, the Whole Year Inn.
Yeah.
Well done. So there you go. So right before Ben walks inside, it shows the name, the Whole Year Inn. And as he's standing in line to check in, he smiles at the sign and sees the Whole Year Inn. And for such a dark film, it's nice to have a little bit of humour, you know? Well done. 3 out of 3. Sophie, there are going to be people who are listening to this who have an interest in one day having a portfolio that looks like yours. What do you think are some of the key skills it takes to become a good production designer?
Passion, versatility. You've got to be versatile. You've got to be prepared to, like, if the director comes in and says, I don't like this, you can't take it personally. You've just got to turn on a dime and say, okay, how can we change it? I think it's always useful to know a bit about architecture and architectural drawing, because generally when you start, unless you're going to be a set decorator, you're going to have to do some sort of technical drawing. So you've got to have an aptitude for that. And you've also just got to be prepared to work all hours, because the art department is pretty tough going. If the set's not ready, they can't shoot. So you've got to be there and get it ready.
What do you think is a good first step into this role, I mean?
First step is to be a runner, which is what I did. Just show that you have some artistic bent, because I'm always going to give the job to somebody who really is passionate about doing it, instead of somebody who's like, oh, I'd fancy this. So if you've got a portfolio of drawings or anything, I just look to see if they've got an artistic bias, photographs, you know, and you can talk passionately about the subject matter, I think is the first thing. And get yourself in as a runner, like the junior, even making cups of tea, and then see whether you like it, and then choose which area you want to go in. Don't decide, I'm going to be the production designer. You might prefer the set decoration, or you might prefer prop making. There's so many areas to the art department. I forgot to say about the prop makers, actually, earlier on, but we're in charge of all the people who make all the props as well.
Can you tell me about your relationship with the props department? Are there any sort of specific examples that stick out for you?
It's a really important relationship. I mean, there's 2 different methods of working. There's the American method, where the prop master is in charge of anything the actors touch. So, like, if, for instance, we're in this room and I've picked up the colour swatch, they would be providing the colour swatch. They'd be making the colour swatch. They'd have anything to do with all that sort of stuff. So I have to have a really good relationship with them, to make sure that they're producing the stuff, but it's in the same tone as the rest of the set design. So the British way, the prop master doesn't do any of that. The prop master just runs the team who come in and put all the furniture in place. So it's a very different role.
What do you wish you knew when you first started out?
I wish I knew that one shouldn't take things so seriously, because I was so passionate and I took it very seriously.
I guess when you're young as well, or new, should I say, passion can also sort of like hurt your feelings if people are giving you constructive feedback, or they are not with your vision or something like that. So you sort of have to separate your like identity from the product you're creating.
That's really well put. Yeah, it's separating your identity, which is really tough. I find it really tough.
Yeah. Sophie, I've loved speaking to you today. I just want to say thank you for taking the time, especially after sort of having our conversation, knowing how busy you are. This is like valuable time that you are spending. And it's been really interesting to learn everything there is to know about production design. Before you go, I would love to ask for one final piece of advice, like a golden nugget of wisdom, or something that you think anyone who has an interest in film and TV should know?
I think it is know a bit about art history, because that's what it's all about ultimately. Film history.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you for watching. We'll be back next week with more conversation and more insight. And in the meantime, let us know, what do you want to know about the film and TV industry? What job role do you want to hear from next? You can send us a message at We Are CrewHQ on Instagram and TikTok. I'll see you next time.